नमस्कार। फोक ब्रेन के इस कार्यक्रम कल्चर मैटर्स विद कैलाश मिश्रा में आप सभी का स्वागत है। टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू टेक यू टू ए विलेज इन औरंगाबाद ऑफ महाराष्ट्र. That village is called Ajant, and in the Ajant village there is a famous historical site called Ajanta. Ajanta is a conglomeration of 31 caves, and that depicts the Buddhist architecture, sculpture, paintings, planning, and so many things. We know a scholar, Rajesh Singh, Dr. Rajesh Kumar Singh, who has been working in Ajanta like a passionate research scholar from last 30 or 25 years. As a sage who has been financing to get the ultimate reality of life from the Almighty with his finance, and Rajesh has achieved that status. He has been writing and exploring the new truth about Ajanta, its politics, its architecture, its sculpture, paintings, that entire thing. Every day he comes out with new ideas. What Rajesh told me 20 years ago, if I am asking him today, Rajesh, what do you think about this? He says, no, these are the old things. I have changed my mind on the basis of what I am finding, what I have found in Ajanta. And he has been using the scientific method, pure scientific method, to explore the new things about Ajanta. The power of Rajesh is reflected by Walter Spink, a nonagenarian who has recently died. Before his death, Rajesh, he has written 60 or 50-page writer in an international journal on Rajesh writing on Ajanta. And the writing of Rajesh on Ajanta was just a 4-page writing. That shows his engagement with Ajanta. तो हम आप लोगों को राजेश जी के साथ ले जा रहे हैं, who had his initial education from Patna Art College. From there he went to Baroda, did his master in art history from Baroda, and then he joined many organizations including Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts. We were colleagues working together for the same organization. He did his PhD from the Punjab University, Chandigarh, and he has written numerous articles and 3 books, and 3 more are coming. So this is the brief about Rajesh Singh. He is a passionate researcher, art historian, archaeologist, and sensitive human being who has been writing very scientifically, to the point, methodically about Ajanta, and now he is planning to write on other things also. With this small introduction, I welcome Rajesh for this Culture Matters with Kailash. Thank you so very much, Dr. Rajesh Kumar Singh, for accepting my invitation to deliver a PowerPoint and demonstrative lecture demonstration on Ajanta. So, you know, the pattern of FolkBrain is this, that the speaker speaks with his PowerPoint presentation and whatever he has. We don't disturb. He has full liberty to speak the way he wants to speak. And once a lecture is over, there is a session we call Batkahi. So we invite our viewers to put questions, suggestions, and their opinion about your lecture demonstration. And we spend some 15 minutes or 20 minutes time to responding to the questions and opinions, whatever you receive from them. This is the pattern. Your lecture would be in English, and you can answer the questions of the people in Hindi or English, whatever way you feel it convenient, and the way you have been asked the questions. If the viewers wants to know the answer in Hindi, you can answer them in Hindi. If he is conversant in English, you have to answer in English. That is the pattern. Rajesh ji.
Thank you, Kailash ji. Thank you for your kind introduction. Uh, I would like to make a small correction. My PhD was from the MS University of Baroda.
Oh,
I, although I had enrolled once in Punjab University, but it did not materialize.
oh,
And yes, I have learned a lot from Professor Walter Spink and Professor Schingloff of Germany, Monica Zinn, but mostly from the stalwarts like James Ferguson, James Burgess, Yazdani, Mirashi, Ajay Mitra Shastri, Hans Becker. The name is endless. This is not the complete list. These are the doyens who have worked on this subject since the last 2 centuries or so. And we have a great legacy of knowledge. And so, Ajanta is a World Heritage Site. It is a great monument. And uh, it has received a lot of attention from the scholars, visitors, common persons, students, professors, uh, and of course, it is one of the great monuments of our country, our civilization. And now it is also a World Heritage Site, so it is a World Heritage property. And with this little introduction of Ajanta, because Ajanta really requires no introduction. And so when you requested me to present an introduction, it was a difficult task uh, because the subject is so big, the subject is so vast, and it's like, there's always a risk of doing an injustice with the site, with the greatness of site, when you kind of want to present it within 1 hour, something that there are 30 temples over there, actually, as you know, as Dr. Kailash Mishra, you have rightly said there are 30 temples. And so we are really, it's talking about 30 temples, and we will get some opportunity to see here in some detail. So the best thing I would like to do is to take you through Google walkthrough, which is called Street View, so that you can experience the caves. Thanks to technology, that it is possible now, virtual walkthrough technology. And maybe 10 or 20 minutes we can spend going into some of the caves and just get a look and feel for those who have not yet been there. There may be some audience who have not visited, so they would love to see what it looks like. And after that, I will spend about uh, uh, 30 minutes in showing about some of the architectural details through some photographs and some ground plans. So this is the plan that I have followed, and you will kindly keep the time, because I have a bad habit of not keeping the time, get engaged into one cave, talk something very lengthy, and then miss other caves. So that should not happen. So can we now see the Google walkthrough, Dr. Kailash?
yes. Wait, just wait for a minute. Uh, yes, it is there now.
All right.
Please carry on.
Yeah. So I'm beginning from the earliest cave in Ajanta. These are called caves. Actually, the people who made them, it was temple for them. They were Buddhists, and they worshipped the stupa. They worshipped the Buddha, the Shakyamuni, in the form of the stupa, and this is the stupa that you can see right here. And so one by one, I will show these, just take you around, just show you what these things are. And you see on the ceiling is vault structured ceiling. So, and you had wooden ribs and wooden beams that were fitted on the ceiling, and you can see the sockets, and still you can see the marks of that wooden framework which was once there. Now it is missing. Obviously, uh, even without that wooden structure, this ceiling is intact. It is still there. It's not collapsed. So you know that this ceiling was not going to fall. So the question is, why did they put the wooden structure? The thing is, uh, architecture in those times, we are now in 3rd century BC or 2nd century BC, that is before the Christ. 200 years or 300 years before the Christ. The exact date of this particular building is not yet fixed. So we roughly say 3rd century BC or 1st century BC. And some even say 1st century BC. So scholars are not exactly clear about the date of these buildings. So what I'm trying to say is that this was a phase when the Buddha was not worshipped in his human form. Like sometimes Jesus is worshipped in the form of the cross, and so symbol worship is there in many religions, and this is not an exception. So this is the stupa that you see, and so a question that may be asked is, what are these Buddha figures doing here on these pillars? The simple answer is that these Buddha
Uh,
figures,
Dr. Rajesh,
yeah,
I see if some mobile is open
okay.
and it is there with you. If it is there, please close it.
Oh, I removed it. Now it is okay.
Uh, yeah. Please speak. Yeah. Now it is all right. Please carry on.
Yeah. So these Buddha figures were painted in the 5th century AD, and this stupa and the entire edifice was done in 2nd century BC. So there is a time gap of nearly 6 centuries or 7 centuries between the architecture and the painting that you see here on this wall. Many scholars earlier were confused, about these data aspects. Thanks to Professor Walter Spink, who did a lot of research, and he brought to our attention the fact that these are later paintings. So by the time this painting was done, uh, uh, it had already become a custom to worship the Buddha in his human form. But that is not the say. That is not to say that stupa worship had died. No, it continued. It continued for. It continues even today. We still make stupas here and there. But the painting that you see here on the wall under the glass, because we people of the 20th century and 21st century, we wrote our names on that wall. This entire wall was painted, and they were painted with the old stories from Buddhist scriptures. So I'm not going to be talking today about paintings because that deserves a separate introduction. There are many paintings, many paintings. In fact, Ajanta is more famous for paintings. And therefore, when Dr. Kailash asked me about introduction, so I said, look, let's begin with an introduction to architecture, because that is also something which is neglected, and many people have many questions about architecture, and many questions are not yet answered. So I will first give an introduction to Ajanta architecture, and maybe in future, if we have a chance, painting really deserves a separate introduction. But in passing, I'm just saying, those who are curious, that except the floor, everything was painted, once upon a time. So that's about this cave now, and we will now go to another cave. Uh, Thanks to Google Earth, we can see many things. So I'm going actually chronologically. Ajanta, all the Ajanta caves. You see, there are so many caves. This is the Vaghora River. You see, and this is one hillock. This is another hillock, and you have the river flowing like this. Like a horseshoe shape. It is said. So this river, now there is a dam. In modern times, a dam has been constructed upstream, and so the river flow is compromised only in the rainy season, maybe 1 month or 2 months a year. But before the dam was constructed, it was really throughout the year water was flowing. So in this, you can see that the caves, you can see from here, that is cave number 29, that is cave number 27, this is cave 26, that is cave 25, 24, cave number 23, 22, 21, and that is 29 because it was discovered much later. I mean, we found it, modern archaeologists found it much later on. So last number was given to it, cave number 29. This is cave number 20. This is cave number 19. And cave number 18, which is a cistern. It is a water it has simply water, like a well. And that is cave 17 and cave 16, cave 15. So this is, maybe helpful because when I'll be talking about numbers, so these cave numbers may be useful. This is cave number 9. So that is cave 10, and this is cave number 9. So these two temples, they belong to the earlier phase of Ajanta. As I said, Ajanta was excavated in two phases. The earlier phase was done in 2nd century BC and 2nd century AD, and the later phase was excavated in the 5th century AD. This is our current understanding, and nobody has a doubt about it anymore. Earlier people believed that Ajanta kept happening up till 6th century and 7th century. And in older books, if you are consulting, you may find some old dates. But like in science, like in every subject, knowledge always advances, it perfects. So now what I'm sharing with you is the current knowledge. And so right now we are in the early phase. Of course, these 4 panels of the Buddha, they do not belong to the earlier phase. They belong to 5th century AD. So by this formula which I'm sharing with you, there should not be much doubt in identifying the periods. And this is cave number 99. So generally people call them Chaitya Grihas. All right. So let us also think about these terms or names. And so people call it Chaitya Grihas or Chaitya Ghara. In Pali, Chaitya is Sanskrit and Chaitya is Pali, which is formed from Chita. That is the, funerary mound when burial kind of system was there. So people started making something, and ultimately it came into rock-cut architecture. And I will not be talking much about extreme detail because every cave has so much of interesting things. Look at this. This is in this edifice, in this temple. There is an inscription over here, and I don't know whether you can see in this photo, but something is written over here. If you can identify, So that is basically written that one son of Vasishta, had donated a wooden framework, a wooden facade. So there was a woodwork before on the face of this temple. It must have looked very beautiful, and it must have been painted so beautifully. But the opening was open. It was open. There was nothing here. But look at this. This is not open. This has a Chaitya arch. This is called Chaitya arch, and and there is something over here, and the day and the door is here. There are two windows, and so if you go inside this, I don't know whether. Yeah, now we are inside that temple. So once you go inside this, it is a somewhat smaller. It also had a similar kind of ceiling, and these pillars, they are octagonal pillars. In at that point of time, in the pre-Christian times, the pillars did not have much decoration. They were octagonal pillars, and so that is the sign of one of the sign of early caves. And these are fabulous paintings, now much destroyed. And there are also narrative from the Pali, Buddhist Pali scriptures, and I will tell you separately another day about how these ancient stories written about Buddha's past lives were painted by the painters on these walls. Okay, and each story deserves a separate attention, and unfortunately, a lot of painting is so badly destroyed. And but this is a Jataka called Pandar Jataka, and then there is a Naga Jataka, Shasha Jataka. So there are different kind of Jataka. Jataka means the life of the Buddha in his previous births, and they were a subject of literature. They were a subject of drama, theater. People used to love listening to these stories about Buddha in his previous birth, and even his stories of his life, how he was born, and what he did in childhood, and how he left his palatial home and then went into the jungle and forest, doing meditation and learning and finding answer to some questions. What is the reason of the grief of the people, and how it, so it took many years after that he found enlightenment. That is a separate subject of Buddhist studies, in which I'm not going. I'm confined here more with architecture. So I will go out now and take you to another, just give you an overview of how these buildings look like. And uh, I'll take you to one more building here, which was not a temple. Uh, this is that was 9, and this is 10. Let's come here. Okay. One second. Sometimes this Google walkthrough is difficult to navigate. You have to please bear with me. Yeah. I wanted to come here. This is a neighboring cave, just near adjacent to cave number 10. It is simply a hall. Okay. It is simply a hall. And as you can see, I mean, of course, something has fallen on the facade. This is cement construction. This is a modern construction because the government is afraid. You can see the cracks developing here, and the conservation department is measuring something they have put here to measure to understand what is happening to the rock, and they are afraid that this ceiling might fall because the front has fallen, and therefore they have put a cement structure. But this is not original. In fact, the original structure has no pillar at all. And this is also a very important feature. Even today in marriage halls, or in stadiums, you don't like to have pillar, in your halls. You want to stop. You want to. You don't. So this was a kind of pillarless hall. That was the system. And look at that painting on the ceiling. Some traces of painting are there. So it is enough for us to understand that even this was painted. These are the cells or rooms for the monks to stay. So you have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4 cells here, 4 rooms here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms here. So, and of course, on the front side, when you want to enter from the front, there cannot be any room over there. So on 3 sides only, the rooms used to be there. And while this floor is cement, but this is rock, and that was the door. Some remains of the door is still preserved. You can see here that this was the front door, and there was something like a front wall here. What was the exact structure of that wall, we do not know. But I just wanted to tell you that why there is no Buddha image, why there is no stupa, the simple reason that this was for dwelling, monastic dwelling, because they were mendicants, they had left the world, they had gone to the jungles, they had left their family, they had become the monk, or bhikshu, they had become bhikshu, bhante, and it was for them to stay, what we call monastic dwelling. So architecture in that point of time, this is 2nd century BC or 3rd century BC. At this point of time, architecture, the function of architecture was quite simple. Okay, this was meant for dwelling and congregation. You needed the hall for congregation, for community worship, or even for dining, or even for resting, or reclining and things like that. And this was for staying. You can perhaps also see that there is a bench inside, on this door. You can see the bench inside. That was a bench for monks to sleep. And so because the function, the purpose of this building was not for worship, and therefore no place of stupa here, no place of Buddha here, or Buddha figure here. So let us understand this. Let us look at architecture from this angle, from the angle of function. So you will easily be able to understand yourself and relate to these monuments better. Now, so I'm not going into all the, there are 2 more such upashrayas. They are called, because upasaya word is written here in an inscription. I don't know, it is not visible. Over here, there is an inscription that says that a merchant from a neighboring village, called Thana, he donated this avraka and upasaya. So upasaya is the Pali, and upashraya is Sanskrit. So still today, upashraya the word is used in Jaina monasteries and in Gujarat and other places. So this was donated by a merchant, so people like you and I, anybody would come forward and say that, look, I would like to make a temple here for the great saints, for the great teachers, the religious teachers whom we worship, whom we venerate, and it is for them to come here and live, and in return they come here and give sermons to the devotees, to the laity, to ordinary people like you and me. So I just want you to understand Ajanta from, as if, there is no mysticism about it. Unfortunately, in many literature, in public imagination, people think, oh, everything was so mysterious. No, it's not mysterious. It's like how you make your building today. And similarly, they make buildings in the past. It was for very, very material for purpose, and they had quite material considerations. They also required money and wealth. Now, I will now take you. I will now take you to a flight in time from the 2nd century BC directly to 5th century AD, because for the next for the between those two 400 or 500 or 600 years, no new rock art excavations happened in Ajanta. It was in 5th century AD that new building started to be made on this cliff. And so let's go. It is not possible for us to go into each cave because we had set only 20 minutes for 30 minutes for Google Street View. So I will show you only 2 or 3 buildings of the 5th century AD so that you at least get some idea of what the caves look like and what are the most typical features. I'll take you, let's go to Ajanta cave number 1 first, because this is so beautiful. This cave is so beautiful and it's so interesting. This is the Garbhagriha. Okay, let's go first. All right, this is how it appears from inside. And if we go out, then I know that it's a little bit difficult to come in because of some Google this feature problems are there. This is the porch. Sometimes this is not exactly friendly. This to navigate is not exactly friendly. So let's leave that. This is the we are in cave number 1. You can see cave number 1 written here. This is the porch. As you come from, this is the front court. Front court. From the front court, you come here to the porch area, and it is also called veranda. So this is veranda area. As you can see here, the pillars are so wonderfully decorated. These are not simply plain pillars. They also have some sculptural motifs here, and so this is obviously a much more developed and much more advanced, and it's 5th century AD. And as you can see, this was painted. This was all painted. Unfortunately, the paint has fallen off, but some traces of the painting you can still see here in this wall. Some part of the painting is preserved here on the veranda and something on the ceiling also, as you can see. But the rest part of the color has fallen off. Look at the doorway. They have carved this beautifully carved doorway, and these are human figures in love. Somehow in temple architecture, from the very earlier times, it became a fashion, it became a motif, it became a style, it became a convention to paint or carve out these happy couples, around the doorway. Because Buddha was not against the couple, not against family, not at all. Everybody was not supposed to become a monk, no. So upasakas, like you and I were upasakas, and they were family, and so happy family, prosperity and happy family, music making, So really, this was a place and look at this. These are the 2 river goddesses. These river goddesses are on Makara. This is a crocodile. As you know, river symbolizes fertility. It symbolizes prosperity. It means civilizations. All the civilizations of the world, were developed around rivers. And even today, there's a water crisis in the country, and we know that that rivers are sustainers of life. So it is no wonder why rivers were worshipped in all religions, in Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism, everywhere. Also in some of the other religions, rivers have been worshipped. So, traditionally speaking, this is not Ganga and Yamuna. Ganga is supposed to be on crocodile and Jamuna is supposed to be on tortoise. That is not what is seen here. This is also crocodile and that is also crocodile. Both of them are Makara, and therefore we do not know why those artists did like this. So it will be a mistake if you jump to a conclusion, Ganga and Jamuna, like you see in many other temples, but that is not the case here. Let's leave this doorway here. We cannot talk much about this doorway now, and go inside to see what it looks like from inside. Look at this highly developed pillar, and see, these are the ornate bands, decorative bands, where these are the pearl necklaces hanging from another pearl necklaces, and this is also ornamentation. And look at this, all these kind of things. And this is a something called amalaka. Later on, it became much more popular. It is a citric kind of fruit. Some people also call it cushion capital. So this all really, this Ajanta is among the earliest architectural monuments in the history of architecture, where you see such kind of motifs before Ajanta, before this date, in the history of rock art architecture, or even in the history of rock cut, even in the history of Indian architecture. We are not able to find many examples of such profuse ornamentation. Not before 5th century AD. We are at pains to find. We are at pains to find. So really, each monument is unique. Each monument was made by a different design, under a different design, by a different patron, by a different guild, because many people and many artists, many masons were working, many sculptors were working together. I'm not going to be talking about political background today in this lecture. If there is an occasion in the future, that deserves a separate introduction to the political background. What was happening, what kind of people were there, who were the kings, and what was happening there, which were the other temples, and what was architecture in the rest part of India, and how was Ajanta related to the other forms of architecture in this country or in other countries. So we are really cannot go into those details. I just want to draw your attention to some of the peculiarities which you can notice. Look at that blue color over here. This is so fascinating, still so preserved. It was done in 5th century AD, and now we are talking in from 21st century AD, still preserved so nicely. But inside you have more of such evidence. This is a beautiful, incidentally, we are here with this beautiful painted representation of the Mara Vijaya theme. Unfortunately, there is a flare of light on this painted surface, so you are not able to see the details of these figures. But you can probably see the face of the Buddha here in meditation. And look at that fellow. He has a sword in his hand, and look at his face. He's just about to attack the Buddha. And look at that guy over here. He has this hand and raised finger. He's also attacking. And look at this guy. He's also a demonic figure with a sword in his hand. And so all these people, look at that demon. This demon, horrible guy with a finger inside his mouth, and he's grimacing, and he's trying to scare the Buddha. And this guy over here, this figure, he's attacking the Buddha, actually hitting him with some kind of a weapon. And here also there's another one, he's also attacking the Buddha. So this particular narrative, this particular story has been depicted when Buddha was on the last day of his meditation, of his tapasya, of his penance in Bodh Gaya under that people tree, and he was about to get enlightenment. And at that point of time, Mara, in Buddhist religion of 5th century AD, Buddha's adversary was Mara, and Mara was the god of ignorance, and he was the god of, Mara does not want anybody to get enlightened. Mara does not want anybody to get knowledge. and Mara is rules over suffering and all this, everything that is bad, and he's a villain of this story. And he doesn't want Buddha to get enlightened, and he's trying his best to stop him. And look at this figure. These are Mara's daughter and three over here. And first they tried to seduce him, and they had failed miserably. And later on they tried to kind of attack, but Buddha was totally unmoved. I'm not telling you the story here because each story really deserves a separate treatment. At least 5 minutes is required for each story, and there are 84 such stories painted in Ajanta, and which I had the chance to document and collect together in my little book over here, and which I'll probably show later on. So we are not going to do painting. We'll skip the painting here, and look. But you should look at some of these architectural details and look at the ceiling. The ceiling was so beautifully painted, and this is there's a professor Monica Zen in Germany, and she has written a beautiful book called the Devotional and Ornamental Paintings, a guidebook and handbook of Ajanta, and in which she was really very systematically she identified that this whole painting program is about the beams and rafters. In the contemporary buildings, if you want to make a flat ceiling, how do you do it? You have to make this this is the main beam. This is the main beam. From this main beam, you have these other beams, the other beams. And then there are smaller rafters, all right? And between those intersections, among those intersections, there are spaces. In that spaces, you have all these beautiful designs painted, sometimes foliage, fruits of various kinds, and sometimes, look at this, some water creatures, syncretic creatures, and in the center of the ceiling, you have this medallion, also called roundel. And in this medallion or roundel, on the corners, you have these flying figures. Now, who are these flying figures? These flying figures are various classes of geni, various classes of yakshas. So, these yakshas were once upon a time, yakshas were worshipped. And in fact, the iconography of the Buddha image was derived from the yaksha iconography. And, in Mahabharata also, you find the mention of yaksha, and they were so powerful that when Pandavas went to get water from a water body, and the yaksha said, "Look, you cannot take the water unless you answer my questions." But they were so proud. So 4 of the 5 brothers did not bother to answer the question, and they were put to death instantly. Such was the power of the yakshas that even a fight was not required. It was ultimately left for Yudhishthira, who comes here and answers the questions. And once the yaksha was satisfied, then they were allowed to take water. And you also know the famous story that Yudhishthira also said, "Look, I will not take the water unless you make my brothers alive." So this is just a small story that has come down to us more clearly from the Mahabharata than from the Buddhist scriptures. But this story I just mentioned to make a point that these yakshas were really very powerful deities, and they are always in the service of the Buddha. So imagine the power of the Buddha. So, sometimes on these pillars, you see so beautifully these people, these are also yakshas. They are also yakshas, and they are holding the weight of the ceiling, and so they are made corner figures over here. Sometimes they are also called bharavakas, weight lifters. And if some of you are interested in sculpture, so you can take enjoyment in the fact that the sculptor wanted to display his skill and so four deer are there sharing one head, you know. So this is just a decorative motif, and here also four deer sharing one head, and these are flying Gandharva. They're flying musicians. As I said, there are various classes of Gandharvas and Yakshas. There is one particular class of Gandharva that plays the music. They are the celestial musicians playing music in the heavens. Okay, and but on the right side, what you see is not the Gandharva. This is Gandharva, but on the right side, what you see is not the Gandharva, because he has a beard, you know, and they are wearing some kind of a dhoti. So they are actually Brahma Kaikas, that is the gods of the Brahma heaven. You know, they are also bringing garlands for the Buddha, and here also you have Brahma Kaikas, the gods of the Brahma image, and they appear like today's sadhu, you know. But really they are called in Buddhist scriptures, they are recognized as Brahma Kaikas. So all these people are, look at this Vyala figure, you know, this syncretic figure, many animals mixed together to make up one different kind of animal. And so why these figures are decorated here? Because right now the Buddha, if you thought was sitting on the earth, you are mistaken. Buddha is sitting actually in his heaven, because of all these yakshas and Gandharvas and all these heavenly things, and everything is so wonderful. So Buddha is really, this place as imagined by the architect is not on the earth, it's actually in the clouds, right? And because of and precisely to make this semblance, to make this poetic, imaginative kind of situation on a mountain, that is why this mountain cliff was chosen, which is so beautiful. Still so beautiful. You had waterfall over here and vegetation and wildlife. It really gives you an otherworldly kind of feeling. So, and I'm not going to be talking to you about all these beautiful paintings. You have the Mahajanak episode over here, a Jataka called Mahajanak Jataka. Here you have Shankpal Jataka, and here you have Kalyanakarin and Papakarin, the two brothers who were the story of two brothers. It was not identified earlier. Recently, it has been identified by one great German Indologist called Professor Singh. And look at here in this capital. This is called capital. This is pillar, and that particular part of a pillar is called capital. Here you see the stupa worship. Again, to see, look at this. I don't know whether you are able to see clearly, but this is a Naga. You have this Naga hood. This is a serpent, Naga. He is a Naga, and here also you have a Naga. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 Naga heads. Maybe there are 7. There should be 7 actually. Maybe 5. I'm not very sure. But they are offering flower. He has a lotus flower in his hand. Lotus flower in his hand, and this is stupa. So this is the scene of stupa worship. And again, but these are, you know, dwarf. These are yakshas. There's a class of yakshas who have this dwarf. They're dwarf. You know, they have a fat belly, and so they also bring garland for Buddha. They play music, and this is another. This is there are 2 yakshas. See, there are 2 yaksha figures. One is probably Kuber, and the second one is also a male. So the second one could be I don't know. Professor Monica Zin has identified, but I'm just making a guess. One of them may be Manibhadra and Purnabhadra. They were 2 yaksha brothers. Whenever the 2 are depicted, they were typically Manibhadra and Purnabhadra. There are 2 different yakshas who were worshipped by the Buddhists of the 5th century AD, and they are attendants, you know, and these are called Vidyadharas. Whenever you see a class of yakshas flying in the sky and holding a sword in the hands, and that is a Vidyadhara. That is another class of the yakshas. So this is all otherworldly. And but here you see another kind of yaksha who has the lower figure of a bird, and upper figure of a human figure, and but the lower half is that of a bird. So that is another class of the yaksha called the kinnaras in Buddhist cosmogony of 5th century AD. So I'm just showing you some of these things that you should notice. And look at here. This is Buddha is seated over there. This is the so-called Padmapani and Vajrapani, the most famous painting in India or Asia, perhaps. But recently, Professor Monikazin has given a new name to them, and the new name is called um, Bodhisattva prince, Bodhisattva king in mountainous jungle. Because really, this is mountain. There are mountains and there are jungles and there are forest dwellers. Look at this dark complexioned figure. Look at this dark complexioned lady. They were unidentified for some time, for until recently, but a lot of new research has taken place, and now we know that it was not really. Look at this. This is the so-called Padma Vajrapani, but I'm not going to be talking much in detail. But you should just notice that these famous paintings are there inside cave number 1. And this is a shrine. It's called shrine or sanctum sanctorum in Latin. And in later times, this particular part of the building came to be known as the Garbhagriha, and still today in our temples we call it Garbhagriha. So you had the front court, the veranda or the hall, and then you have this hall, and this is, and you can walk through this. Now it is restricted, but this is in architectural terminology we call it aisle. So left aisle, rear aisle, right aisle, and front aisle. And this is the center of the hall, and then you go into this, and there is an antechamber. Antechamber has 2 pillars, and inside that you have the so-called Garbhagriha. I do not use the word Garbhagriha for Ajanta for the simple reason that we do not know what they called it for sure, because Garbhagriha is a later term that was developed, I would say, in Hindu temple architecture, or Brahmanical temple architecture or Shaivite architecture, whatever term you like to prefer. But at this point of time, Garbhagriha is not the word that we find. Ajanta has many inscriptions, many inscriptions, and some of the inscriptions also have architectural term. And one of the architectural term used is Chaitya Mandira or Stupa Mandira or Sugatale or Gandhakuti, or Antar Mandapa. These are different words which are used, and therefore I like to use the word which those people used in those times, and because our terms are not necessarily correct, not necessarily applicable to that building in that century. So that was a brief introduction of this monument. I think I spoke a lot about cave number 1. We should now,
Uh,
yeah,
Rajesh, we can quickly conclude this, and then we
yeah,
can go to our next thing. So that
yeah.
you have given the glimpse about the holistic overview of Ajanta, and please conclude, and then we can go ahead with the
Yeah,
second
part. Yeah, yeah.
setup
All right. So I will now
set
show
of
the
PowerPoint
PDF,
that you have.
and so I'm stopping this screen sharing,
Yeah.
and now share the PDF presentation. All right. So we come here now to a PPT that I have. This is just to show you the location of Ajanta in the map of India. For those who are not already familiar, you can see Ajanta is here. This is Ajanta over here. This is Aurangabad city. And there are many other caves over here. This is the Bombay region. This is the Bombay region. So that is about the location of Ajanta. And I have a map here, which shows about the ancient trade routes. All these ancient cave temples were made on ancient trade routes where merchants used to go. And look at this map. Ajanta is over here. This is Vidarbha, and Narmada is over here. This is Narmada, and north of Narmada you generally had Uttarapat, and this is Dakshinapat. Generally, it used to be called Baroda area was Lat, and this is Kuntala. So these are some of the ancient names in those times. So for students, it may be a little helpful to notice these details. And um, just one point I would like to say. I was doing some research, and my research indicated that when these temples were being made, there was some kind of astronomical uh, adjustment done. So this is the cave number 26, and I made this diagram over here. It was actually facing the first rising sun on the day of Ashada Purnima, and Ashada Purnima is the day when the Buddha gave the first sermon in Sarnath. Buddhist religion was founded on that date, and it was perhaps celebrated as a festival in the ancient times. And for that festival day, when this temple was being made, they wanted maximum lighting. And when the sun rises, it rises from here, and in any temple, morning is so important, and therefore they did not want to miss this morning opportunity. This calculation was so important that on Ashad Purnima, it is only this cave that will get the first rising sun, will get the maximum light inside. These temples are not going to receive the optimum lighting inside on such important dates. So I just um, uh, there are some ground plans. Those who want to study architecture in detail can take notice. This is again cave number 1, which we have seen, and I'll show you quickly how these things was arranged. This was symmetrical arrangement. This is the entrance, this is the main door, this is the hall, this is the antechamber, that is the shrine. And if you draw a line over here, then what you should generally find, what is on the left should be on the right. And if you draw an axis over here, what is on the left should be on the right. That is not exactly the case here. Look at this. There is a cell over here, but there is no such cell over here. Look at this. This is two-pillared pavilion. Look at this. This is two-pillared pavilion. That two-pillared pavilion has one inner cell. Now, this two-pillared pavilion has two inner cells. So these are some asymmetry. There are some inconsistencies. So I'm just want you to take a notice of this, that something happened. Whenever there is whenever there is no symmetry, then we should ask the question, why did they do that? Why did they break the rule? Look at this cave number 2 plan. In cave number 2 plan, this is the rear aisle. They have made a cell here and a cell here, but in cave number 1, in this rear aisle, they did not make any cell here and they did not make any cell here. So what was the reason? Why did they do like this? And because they had they were mathematically and geometrically, they wanted to do something perfect. So once you ask the question, go inside the cave, then you will know that there was a terrible kind of crack in the ceiling, and water seepage was happening, and it was happening even until few years ago. And the Archaeological Survey of India had to struggle for many decades to find out how to stop the water seepage, because that water seepage was damaging your great Padmapani and Vajrapani painting over here. And this was so right from 4th century AD. when they were excavating the mountain, they did not know that inside the mountain they are going to face this horrible problem. So I'm just trying to draw your attention to a fact that if you are an architect of such a temple in 5th century AD, things were really not so nice, and many surprises were there when you are doing excavating and uh, and not really building. This was not building, this was like carving in the mountain with human hands and chisels, and so you really did not know what surprises were there. So they were forced to change some of the plans, and in fact they change the plans quite frequently. Many problems happened during the course of time. So these are some of the ground plans. This is the temple that we saw from inside. This is a section. This is the uh, plan. This is the cave 19. We have seen even this temple. These are the later caves in cave number 11, and this is a later phase. So, well, uh, this is a cave number 26. Many things happen, interesting things happen. Cave number 27. And well, I'm now taking you to some of these photographs which you might like. This photo shows all the caves. This is the beautiful waterfall. All those cave temples are carved here on the mountain. Cave number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that, they have been made. This is the front of cave 1, which I've just now I showed you. And interior, this is the shrine of the cave. These people are the donor figures. You know, like if I am donating, giving the money for the construction of the temple, in the end, what I wanted was that my figure as a worshipper should be made worshipping the feet of the Buddha. So unfortunately, their heads have been broken of many of the donor figures, but we can rest assured they are none other. This is the Bodhisattva. You know, these are Bodhisattvas are like attendants to the Buddha, and they are again Gandharva on the flying figure of the Gandharva. And this is cave number 4, Buddha image, and this is something in cave number 4. The ceiling had fallen. You know, something terrible had happened, and ceiling had fallen, and they didn't know what to do. So, yeah, these are some of the details of this is a cave. Excuse me for a second, please.
You see, Rajesh is emotionally and intellectually associated with Ajanta. He has a very controlled mind. You know, he explains you the way a committed researcher is engaged into it. Rajesh, please continue.
Yeah, so this is
Continue,
a
Rajesh.
cave number, yeah, cave number 6, and there's so many details, and it is. See, this is the inscription which I wanted to show to you. Vasiti Putasa Katahadi no Garamupadanam. You know, on that same cave. So they also wrote inscription. The inscription is in Brahmi, and that particular inscription is in Brahmi, and that is the script, but the language is Prakrit or Pali that was in vogue at that point of time. There are many details. I'll just tell you because in this architecture, look at this. It is same temple, you know, cave number 11. I'm taking you to this particular cave number 1 to show you one. In 2 minutes, I will wind up because it is already 10 past 7. So in 5 minutes, maybe I will close. I'll
No,
show
no,
you. Huh?
Rajesh, let me
Yeah.
intervene. You take 15, 20 minutes because you have already started explaining the things that belongs to you. So people should know about it. Carry on, carry on.
Okay, so this is cave number
And
11
and, and then thereafter will be some questions and some suggestions are coming. And people are praising you, praising you, praising you. You are being praised like anything,
No,
and
Ajanta
you
should be.
well deserve that. So please carry on, carry on. Don't get,
Ajanta, yeah.
don't worry, don't get hurried. So it should not be a hurriedly presented paper at the end. Please continue, like a
All right.
divine, intellectually seated, seasoned Rajesh. Please continue.
So this is a porch veranda of that particular cave which I was showing you, and many horrible things happened in that cave. And this was one of the first cave which they were carving in the 5th century AD, and they were really trial and error and many experiments they did, and some of the experiments very badly failed. And I'll show you the proof of some experiments. Um, I don't know how long. How look at this. This is the left side of this is the main entrance. This is the left pillar, the right pillar. Now that is the detail of the left pillar, and now this is the detail of the right pillar. Look at the base of this left pillar. It has one single molding over here. Look at the right pillar. It has one, two, and three moldings over here. If you are following symmetry, if you are following a plan, you will not do something like this. This certainly looks so much beautiful, and there is absolutely no reason why you will not do it here. The fact is that they had no plan over here. They did not know what to do. They were learning it for the first time. And if I showed in earlier times, the pillars had no base at all, like this, and so they were trying something for the first time over here. And look at this small bench when they try to make some bench over here. In other Ajanta caves, you don't have any such bench. And somebody said, well, make some bench over here. And they made some bench here. And look at this small floor. This floor is raised over here, and this floor is raised over here, and then there are two steps, and then the cell is still so high. The question is, why is that so? Because in other caves you do not see like this floor is there, and then this cell is there, and sometimes one step is there. Why this cell is so higher than this floor, and why this raised platform here, and then two steps, and another cell here which is also so high. So all these things they did because it was all additional. If you go outside and then see, you will find that there is another cave underneath this cave. Okay, and so they had no really initially they had not measured well that they are going to make something like this over here. They knew that if they are going to carve this cell and this cell in the level of the floor, then they are going to cut the ceiling of another cave which is right there under this floor. So by this one single example, if you are able to see anything in this small photo, I only wish to tell you that like you and I, they were doing architecture in that time, and like you and I, they changed the plans, they improvised, and they faced problems. All these kind of things happened. Look at this. This is the same cave 11 which I'm talking about. Look at this cave number 11. This is one window here, another window over there. That window is not very clearly visible, but at least probably you can see that that window, the pillar in that window is square, but the pillar in this window is round. Now, why is that so? This is not a symmetrical mind here. If you investigate, if you ask questions, then you will find that the date of that window is different, the date of this window is different. And this was done somewhat earlier during during the excavation of this. Then the work had stopped for some time, for some years, and many other things happened. I've done some new research which says that there was a war scenario, and Professor Walter Spink says that there was a conflict between the Rishika king and the Ashmaka king. Now, Rishika is is the name of the country where Ajanta was situated in the ancient times, and Ashmaka, according to Walter Spink, is the neighboring country, and they had a conflict and there was a military condition, and due to that, the excavation or the development of these caves had stopped. And so when the war was over and one of the party became victorious, and when the caves again started, by the time new ideas, new fashion, new taste had developed. And so they said, well, I don't want this old stuff here. This is an old square pillar. It looks so bad. The latest idea was have the latest design. And so they made a latest design round pillar. So these are some, sorry, this is the close-up of that particular square window. And well, really, if you look at these pillars, they are not exactly nice pillars, And if you go inside the cave and look at them very carefully, you can really figure out that they were not very skilled. They did not do the work very perfectly, or at least they did not do the work as perfectly as you see in other caves. And if nothing else, you can at least see that there is not so much of design which you have just seen in other caves in cave number 1. Now, why is that so? The reason is that this is one of the first cave in the 5th century AD that was being excavated after so many centuries of gap. And therefore, it was difficult to find the masons and carvers who knew how to do cave excavation. And they were really attempting, many of them were doing a cave excavation perhaps for the first time in their life. And therefore, they really did not know the process, the method, the exact thing, and the dangers and the risk involved in doing things without precautions. And see some of the other strange things. I'm just, because we're talking about architecture, so I'm drawing your attention to some strange things. Inside that very cave, you have this cell, this cell, this cell, there are some cells over here. I'm just making a close-up of the cells to draw your attention to some strange things. These cells have door steps, door steps, and there is a close-up of this door cell. The first cell has this door step, which was never completed, which you can see. And this one is half round and somewhat level, somewhat polished or completed. And this one also is more complete. It is also half round and more complete. And but this one is not like that. But look at the other two cells. This one is square, not half round like this. And this one does not have any step. Now, how, if you are the architect, we are told that ancient Indian architects were great. No, I'm trying to tell you something different. They were really not great, at least in this cave, because a great architect will not do this kind of designing errors, different steps for different cell doors in the same building. If you go into it, let me tell you, I will like to withdraw my statement. The thing is that they were really very great, and as it turned out to be, it's just that they did not know. They did not initially know that we are supposed to carve a step. And the masons who were carving, they had already carved a step. They had already carved this whole floor without leaving a step over here. And then somebody said, an older monk perhaps came and said, look, I'm old and I cannot see properly in this darkness. You have to have a step. So somebody made a step over here, square shape. And then somebody said, look, this step, square shape doesn't look nice. Can't you make it look something nice? And so he was trying to make a good shape over here. And then another person said, well, I can give it some carving, and so that it look nice. So these 4 illustrations are here to draw your attention to a point that there was some kind of experiment going on. They were new, they were learners, and slowly, as they worked, they mastered the craft. And ultimately, they ended up making something which we are awestruck today to see, oh my God, how they did do it. So there is a lot of small, little story hidden in these stones, and each single thing deserves a proper attention. Look at this wall, for example. I took a photo from here to show you that, look, this wall is really a curved wall. they could not get the wall straight, you know. And but because this is so early and they had some problems. And look at this. I mean, there's a projection over here and there's a projection over here. This, I mean, this wooden door is put there by the Archaeological Survey of India today. But in the ancient times, they had their own door. And this door and this door, this is, I'm borrowing from the research of Professor Walter Singh because his research is also very important. It shows how the architecture happened. Now, if you are able to see in this photograph, there's a projection over here, there's a projection over here. They knew that we are going to fit door hinges over here, and they are going to put wooden doors over here, and they made a socket. If you can see a socket over here, in this socket they were going to fit the door, and here there is no such socket, no such socket, so the door cannot be actually put over there. So what happened? Why did they do like this? You left a projection, you cannot add it. This is monolithic, one piece of rock, entire mountain, entire building, nothing is structural, nothing is put from outside, it's all monolithic. So while making the excavation, while carving the mountain, they knew that we are going to have this over here and over this here. They put a hole here to put the door, but there is no such hole in this photograph seen. And if you go over there ever, you can go and check for yourself. You will find there's no such hole. So what happened? What happened? Was the door ever hung over there or not? The answer you will get is sorry. The door was never hung over there. Never hung over there. If the temple is so complete, look at the shrine Buddha in the same. This painting is over here. This is painted, sir. This Buddha is complete, and fragments of paintings are preserved here. In fact, there are two layers. If you go over there, and I think I have photograph of detail. No, I do not have in this. Here, this is a detail which shows that there are two layers. This is the first layer, and that is the second layer. So painting was completed, very much completed. So worship was happening perhaps. But why did they not complete this shrine? Look at this floor. This floor is done, but that is not done. And look at this wall. It's all not leveled at all. And so many strange things. Look at this. I mean, this socket. There's a socket here. There's a socket here. This is inside the shrine. This is inside the shrine. If you go inside the shrine and turn back and then take a photograph of the door from the interior, then you will find that there are two sockets over here. These sockets are nothing but they were meant for hanging the doors, hanging the doors. So the question may be asked, why this kind of socket here for hanging the doors, and why the projection here? This is not a socket, this is a projection here for hanging the doors. This is because if you go into it, then you will investigate, and then you will come to know that they had no idea that we should be having this projection for hanging the doors. And inside the shrine, because the work was happening in such a great frenzy, that the masons did a mistake. Masons did a mistake. They carved out this wall without leaving any projection. And then ultimately when they came in, and the master came in and said, where are we going to hang? How are we going to fit the door? So they knew, oh my God, this is a terrible mistake. So they cut the hole here, and then fitted a wooden peg over there perhaps, and from that wooden peg there would be the hinges, the door hinges will fit in, and then the door. So this was a kind of engineering. They engineered a door fitting system in this shrine, and then they realized, look, we do not need to do all this fitting job and retrofitment if you leave a monolithic projection, because anyway this was not very stable, because those doors were going to be very heavy, and not like the doors of today's houses, but really very heavy. So it was really very not stable. So by the time you can really work out your own. Professor Walter Spink actually showed us this chronological system This was not done, and they said, look, we are going to make this monolithic, and they carved a monolithic projection, and they carved a socket here, and they were going to carve another socket here, but the building was abandoned. Okay, I'm just showing you one example from one cave. I'm not going to show you plenty of examples from other 84 caves that are there, not only in Ajanta but also in Bagh. They are there in Kondavite, they are there in Banoti, they are there in Aurangabad, they are also two in Ellora, also some in Elephanta. There are entire Deccan had many rock cut architecture happening simultaneously in the 5th century AD. Things were developing simultaneously, but suddenly one day, or maybe very rapidly within a few months or within 1 year, the work stopped. Work stopped. And if you want the proof of the work stop, I can show you here in some photographs that look at this. Not a trace of painting on this wall. The embelliatory was never completed. They could not complete it. Okay, and many other odd things happened which we do not have the time to go into. Every cave was abandoned, and the date proposed by Professor Walter Spink after 4 decades of deep research is that in 477 AD all these caves were abandoned because of some terrible political situation, some military situation. The king had died. He proposed that in 5th century AD, in 462 AD, all these caves development began, and in 477 AD, they were nearing the completion. But just before nearing the completion, there was another war, another terrible something happened, and he said it was the Rishika-Asmaka war or the Asmaka attacking the Vakatakas. But my research, new research I have done in the last few years, it says that the Hunas coming from Greater Gandhara region, they had attacked India and destroyed the Gupta Empire, destroyed the Vakataka Empire, also attacked the Trikutakas and the Parivrajakas and the Olikaras. Entire India was terribly affected, and due to this Alchon Hun attack, all this cave temple development throughout the Deccan, also in the north, and so in the Deccan. And I'm not speaking about the south because I have not studied the south yet. So this was a terrible kind of military situations, and cave temples were abandoned. Many of these temples were never put to worship. Worship did not happen in many of the caves. I will stop here now. Thank you, Kailash ji. Yeah, I stop here now. Because already
Okay,
7:30, so I'm ending my lecture.
okay. As we had already decided that Ajanta would continue in series. So this is the beginning of the series. This is the first lecture. It will continue. The politics would be the one part also, and then we will talk about painting, and we'll go to every cave, every this thing, and we can go ahead. Everybody has liked your presentation, Rajesh. Everybody has praised you. Everybody is saying that wonderful. We have some of the audiences said we have read about Ajanta in the text, understood the way you have explained Ajanta. So this was a very mesmerizing thing, a wonderful thing. They are all excited. So your old friend, Dr. Salendar Burma say, wonderful
Thank
Rajesh.
you.
And your one more friend, Padma Singh says, uh, are all 84 Jataka stories depicted on the Ajanta caves wall? So I should start with this question. A curiosity is again not a
Yes,
question.
yes. The narratives were reserved for the walls, and ceiling and pillars were reserved for non-narrative paintings, for decorative paintings.
Rajesh, we have Dr. Anjani Kumar Jha. He is a historian from Patna University. He has three, four things to know. Curiosity, no question. So I would start with his Last curiosity. You can read it also. He says, as a student of history, I don't know whether Buddha visited that region as a wandering monk or enlightened lord. Is there
Never.
any reference to that? So this question is
Buddha, uh,
answered.
during his lifetime, Buddha is said to have traveled within the present day boundaries of Bihar, UP, and some parts of Nepal.
Okay. So then
He
this is
did,
that. It was just
he did not
it was
cross.
his.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is answered. The curiosity is over. His second, again, curiosity is this is there is some influence of Greek art on Buddhist art. Full stop. Is it noticeable in Ajanta? Sign of interrogation. Just my curiosity. Again, he wants to know this as a curious learner.
Yeah, actually, it is a very difficult question, and this question has been raised again and again in the last 2 centuries of research on Buddhism, and in general, and since the very time that Buddhism was discovered, Buddhist archaeology came to light, and the thing is that the Greek influence on Buddhism has always been there. Like the boundary of India had been changing. There was a time when, in the Kushana period, you have our boundary was up to Afghanistan and bordering Iran, etc. So you had various kinds of influences always there, and therefore this kind of cultural amalgamation has always been there. It has always been there. In Ajanta also, we find that there are some influences. Greek is not the correct word actually. So it's more correct to say that the Bactrian and Greater Gandharan element, as far as Ajanta is concerned. So not so much in the earlier phase, but in the 5th century AD. My new research, I have just my book. One book has gone for publication, and and by Munshi Ram Manohar Lal is publishing it. It has gone to the press. Perhaps in the 2 months it should be published. The whole book is the theme. The subject of the book is uh, the early Runic invasions and abandonment of Buddhist caves. So these people had come, and so when they disturbed the Greater Gandhara region, the Bactria region, in the present day Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Uzbekistan, etc., this area. So Buddhist monastics had fled from there and came to the Deccan and central in India and took refuge over here because of the terrible disturbance that happened in the 5th century AD in the greater Gandhara region. So when they came here, they also brought their own ideas, and Ajanta was happening at that point of time. Bagh was happening at that point of time. Other so many caves were being excavated. So when they came, they brought a new school of thought, which, according to my latest study, was none other than the Moola Sarvastivada. Okay, it has been a big question among scholars worldwide about Moola Sarvastivad and its region where it originated, etc. So, to cut your answer short, I believe, and I have written in the book, that they brought the Mool Sarvastivad. And if you see the Buddha figures in Ajanta, it was this idea and concept was brought by those Gandharan refugees in the real sense of the word. Before that, in Deccan, only it was stupa worship, the Chaitya worship. Buddha image was not the custom to be painted, to be sculpted in the Deccan as far as the rock cut architecture was concerned. So that partially answers your question.
So, Dr. Jha again congratulates you. He says, excellent, well researched lecture. Thanks. Again, he says, Buddha's idol sculptured by Mahayanis have clear influence. Gandhari itself is influenced by Western art. Do you want to say something on this?
Yeah, first of all, let me tell you, it's again a very difficult, very problematic question. I personally believe that there is, you see, generally people say Hinayana and Mahayana, etc., about Ajanta. And let me tell you, I do not agree with a lot of published literature and published wisdom. Okay, because knowledge is always evolving, and many scholars around the globe from various disciplines have been doing a lot of research on various monuments of India, including Ajanta, and new information, new knowledge is always coming. So the latest knowledge is, here is the latest knowledge. There is nothing Mahayana in Ajanta. Ajanta is all Shravakayana. Earlier phase is also Shravakayana when they were doing the Chaitya worship, and even in the 5th century AD, when Buddha figure was accepted, as I claim, as I argue, as I propose, from these Buddhist monks who had fled from the greater Gandhara region, and when they came to India, okay, so the Buddha figure came and it was accepted, but it was Mul Sarvastivad, because most of the Ajanta paintings, the later Ajanta painting, 5th century Ajanta painting, narrative paintings, they have the close, the nearest version found in the Mul Sarvastivad scriptures, not in the Pali scriptures, not in the Mahayana scriptures. So, and this is thanks to the great research of Professor Stringlock. He has written a big fat book. I strongly recommend everybody, because he took about 3 to 4 decades to write that big volume called Handbook of Ajanta Paintings, and it was in German, now translated in English and published by the IGNC and I think by the Aryan Book International. So that is really a big Bible, I would say, because 2 centuries of scholarship has now culminated. So a lot of questions have now been settled. One of that is the Avadanas and the 5th century Buddhism that we see in Ajanta was really brought here from the Greater Mandara region, and it is Mul Sarvastivad. Mul Sarvastivad was a school belonging to the Shravakayana only, not Mahayana. That is a short
Okay,
answer, but that is a short answer, but the long answer will be really long, because you don't have Manjushri, Mayana, Manjushri, Amitabh, Akshobhya. You know, these are the Mayana gods who are not seen in Ajanta, not a single depiction.
we have Ranjana Ratan. She's saying mesmerizing, and she's again saying crystal clear explanation as ever. And we have,
Thank you,
I
thank
have
you,
Mo,
thank you.
I have Maitrey Kumar. We how we simplify Ajanta for teaching. The information given in textbook is old. Uh, so revision is the thing that she has been suggesting. So again, so many people have praised you. Great elucidation. We have Anup Kumar Jha is been saying like this. Um, there is Tapsi Rakshit, must be your friend. Well researched presentation. Uh, Again, he said that Dr. Ajani Kumar Jha said, can it be assumed to be
Yeah,
purely a
of course.
specimen of Buddhist architecture?
Of course, of course, of course. But
So,
yeah, but again, Mr. Anjan is asking very difficult questions, quite well-informed questions. Yes, it is.
uh,
In Ellora, like you have Buddhists and Jain and Hindus also, and but in Ajanta it was only Buddhism. But specimen of Buddhist architecture is a difficult question, because if you see in quote unquote some of the Hindu monuments of 5th century AD, the so-called Gupta temple architecture, and especially in Dakshin Koshal, there are many places like Tala and Rajim, etc. You will find that the doorways and the motifs and some designs, and there are some elements which is very closely depicted in those so-called Gupta temple architecture that was happening in central India and in coastal area. So there was definitely Ajanta was related with other monuments of its times. It was also related with the monuments of the earlier times. But as I said in the beginning, that I have confined here my presentation to Ajanta, because otherwise we'll land into a question.
Well, Archita Das, she says wonderful information, and again she says great. So, like, Archana Singh, great. Shreyas Kapadi, wow. So these are the very congratulatory remarks you have got. The Dr. Ajani Kumar again says minutely explained, well done, wonderful. Uh, uh, Moitrey Kumar again, wonderful information. Rajesh, uh, we have Kalpana Jha, she says आश्चर्यजनक, एंड वो यह भी कह रही है कि अजंता की गुफाओं के बारे में बहुत पढ़ा था, आज विस्तृत जानकारी पाकर अच्छा लगा। अर्चना दास कह रही है बेहतरीन जानकारी। कल्पना झा जगह सिंह आश्चर्यजनक। अ, इस तरह से बहुत अच्छी अच्छी बातें हम सुन रहे हैं। कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं कि ये जो हम बच्चे हैं, स्कूल में पढ़ते हैं, कॉलेज में पढ़ते हैं, उनके लिए तो यह बहुत ही बढ़िया चीज़ है। इस तरह से लोग कह रहे हैं। Our old friend Hara Prasad is there, Rajesh, and you
Oh,
remember we all traveled to Ajanta. We 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 four bandars, and Hara Prasad was one of them. He said, "Great
yeah.
Rajesh, I hearing your voice after 20 years. You are an expert on Ajanta. Trust you are doing great. Stay blessed." We have Dr. Sanjeev Kumar Singh, archaeologist from the National Museum. He says, lovely traveling to network connection problem, even though he was trying to listen to you. Uh, Tarun Kumar Jha, he said, we the students of history can understand, but they are not getting your communication. He requests you to give one lecture in Hindi probably someday. That was his डिमांड। तो अरुण जी अगर आपको कुछ पूछना है तो हिंदी में पूछ सकते हैं इनको, ये बहुत बढ़िया हिंदी बोलते हैं, हिंदी में लिखते भी हैं, वो आपको ये जवाब दे देंगे। और फोक ब्रेन की थोड़ी व्यवस्था है कि हम हिस्ट्री की और आर्कियोलॉजी की बात करते हैं तो हमारा प्रयास होता है कि अंग्रेजी में हो, लेकिन क्वेश्चन आंसर हिंदी में होगा, तो इसमें राजेश जी की गलती नहीं है, गलती हमारी है, तो आप हमें क्षमा कर सकते हैं। So these are the things, Rajesh. Doctor, as I told you, Dr. Usha Kiran Khan is watching your program. She is Padma Shri, historian from Patna University and Sahitya Academy winner. And she says मैं आ गई और वो शुरू से लेकर अंत तक आपको सुन रही थी। आपके शैलेंद्र वर्मा जी सुन रहे हैं, वेलकम। ग्रेट टू सी हियर राजेश सिंह जी। So these are the few comments. We have Harish Dhawan from Gwalior. He says, "Welcome, sir." So these are the comments we can hear from the people. और uh, ये कमेंट्स अभी आ ही रहे हैं, आप बाद में उनको देख लीजिएगा। एक कह रहे हैं वी वे तापसी रक्षित बता रहे we were people in general were aware of the existence of these caves. Did they visit? Where people in general were aware of existence of these caves. Did they visit these caves? ये
I
क्वेश्चन
mean,
है।
which people?
वो
Which people?
तापसी, can you qualify your question further? If you can elaborate
People
it.
in the modern times or the people in the ancient times? I mean, what?
I have told him to write. I hope डॉक्टर झा फिर कह रहे हैं डॉक्टर राजेश अच्छा लगा आपका ज्ञान
Thank
वर्धक
you.
लेक्चर। झा साहब, ये राजेश बहुत ही सधे हुए विद्वान है और मेरे अभिन्न मित्र हैं, और हम लोग इंदिरा गांधी सेंटर फॉर द आर्ट्स में साथ थे, और हम दोनों एक प्रकार के रिवेलियस थे, हम दोनों भाग गए वहां से। तो अच्छा ही किए, हम दोनों अच्छा अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं। अशोक पुजारी इज आस्किंग यू इफ यू कुड यूज colored and single pictures that give more cleared ideas.
Yeah, I will try next time. Yeah.
This time Rajesh used his PhD वाला thing, और वो ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट था, तो आई टोल्ड हिम, बट ही सेड कि एज वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस अबाउट आर्किटेक्चर, सो दिस वुड सॉल्व द पर्पस, कैलाश जी, एंड ही इज द स्पीकर, एंड बहुत मुश्किल से मैंने राजेश को मनाया था, तो मैंने कहा कि ये भाग न जाए बिदत के, इसीलिए मैंने मान लिया ये, तो अगले बार हम इसका ध्यान रखें कि तापसी इज आंसरिंग यू, ही सेज पब्लिक इन जनरल, यू हैव आस्क्ड कि किसको बारे में बात।
Yeah, see, the thing is, what happened? अच्छा, मैं हिंदी में बोलूं?
हाँ
हिंदी
हाँ
में बोलना
बोलो,
चाहिए? अच्छा,
हाँ बोलो, फिर
just
तापसी का नाम है, फिर तापसी
one
का
second, please, 1 second.
Rajesh is coming, and Tapsi, please wait. If we have any problem in understanding the English, Hindi, we can tell him to respond to in English also.
Yeah, क्या हुआ था कि 5th सेंचुरी एडी में, जैसा कि आपको हमने कहा कि हमारा रिसर्च ऐसा कहता है कि 477 एडी में वहां पे ये हुन लोगों ने अटैक कर दिया। हुन 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 अल्चोन हुन अल्खोन हुन ने अटैक कर दिया। उसका नाम था महाशाही खिंगिल, और उसके बारे में भारत में ज्यादा नहीं मालूम है, अभी पुस्तकों में आपको ज्यादा नहीं मिलेगा। ये बड़े मुश्किल से हमने खोज करके निकाला है, और मेरी नई पुस्तक में हमने ऐसा आर्ग्यू किया है कि भारत में आकर के बड़ी उसने उत्पात मचाया था। और तो उसके बाद जब क्या हुआ कि जब ये बुद्धिज्म, ये सारे जो है ना वो, और उसको शायद बुद्धिस्ट लोगों से शायद कुछ खास बैर था, ऐसा मुझे लगता है। मेरे पास ऐसे कोई प्रमाण नहीं है, लेकिन कुछ खास करके विशेष रूप से शायद उसको कुछ बुद्धिस्ट, क्योंकि गांधार में भी बड़े उत्पात मचाए और यहाँ भी आकर के उत्पात मचाया। और हर बार लेकिन भारत के जो इंडिया के जो किंग्स थे, गुप्ता किंग त्रैकूट का, वो इन्होंने एलियंस किया था और वापस उनको हर बार हरा करके भेज देते थे। बहुत से किंग मारे गए, 20 या 25 किंग का मैंने लिस्ट बनाया है, जो जिनका डेथ हुआ बहुत से वॉर में। कुल मिला के 5 मेजर अटैक्स उसने किए थे 20 साल के अंदर में। सो 477 के बाद क्या हुआ ना कि जब सब अबैंडन हो गया, तो भारत जो है ना वो पूरी तरह से डिस्ट्रॉय हो गया था उस टाइम पे। नॉर्थ इंडिया में गुप्ता एम्पायर वाज डिस्ट्रॉयड, वाकाटक एम्पायर, सारे एम्पायर डिस्ट्रॉयड, कंप्लीटली डिस्ट्रॉयड। बुद्धगुप्त ने आकर के 478 में उसको वापस, उनको वापस भेजा। और बुद्धगुप्त लेकिन फिर भी वो पूरी तरह से वापस नहीं गए। दे वर स्टिल रूलिंग इन वेस्टर्न इंडिया, वेस्टर्न पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया, and some part of India, central India and north India and eastern India, बुद्धगुप्त was ruling। लेकिन 492 में दोबारा उन्होंने अटैक किया, एंड इस बार वो आल्चन क्विंगल का सक्सेसर ने अटैक किया, और वो सक्सेसर का नाम था तोरमान, जिसके बारे में सबको मालूम है। और तोरमान के बाद आया मिहिरखुल, उसके बारे में भी सबको मालूम है। कहने का मतलब ये है ना कि लगभग करीब 100 साल 80 साल एक ऐसा एक कालखंड रहा जहां पे ये बौद्धों लोगों के लिए भारत था नहीं। उन्होंने आकर के पूरा डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिया, राइट फ्रॉम गांधारा अप टू द डेक्कन, आई वुड से इवन अप टू केरला। चूंकि केरला का अध्ययन नहीं किया है, तमिलनाडु का बुद्धिज्म को उतना स्टडी नहीं किया, सर्वे करने की जरूरत है, और तब तक मैं उसके बारे में नहीं बात कहता हूं। बट दे हैड रियली, सो बुद्धिज्म वाज ऑन द बैक सीट। और आपको मैं बता देता हूं कि इन द, दैट इज व्हाई परहैप्स in the 6th century AD you do not find Buddhist caves in this India, no। देन 7th सेंचुरी में बुद्धिज्म आता है। तो कहने का तात्पर्य उनके रक्षित तापसी रक्षित का क्वेश्चन का आंसर ये है कि अबैंडन होने के बाद, उसका परित्याग होने के बाद 100-150 साल तक तो केवल ऐसे ही रहा। बाद में जब 7th सेंचुरी में बौद्ध धर्म आया भी, तो वहां पे इतने जंगल, इतने टाइगर, इतने वाइल्ड लाइफ, इतना सब अंदर में कूड़ा कचरा था, nobody went over there। न्यू सीरीज ऑफ एक्सकवेशन स्टार्टेड इन 7th सेंचुरी एडी, जिसका एग्जांपल एलोरा है, और कई और भी मॉन्यूमेंट आपको मिल जाएंगे। और तब से लेकर के ये जो अबैंडन रहा वो आज तक अबैंडन रहा। और थैंक्स टू दोज ब्रिटिश ऑफिसर्स इन 19th सेंचुरी, उन्होंने आकर के बाद में इसका नोटिस लिया। वैसे आसपास के लोगों को तो पहले से नोटिस था, लेकिन उन्होंने तरीके से बाद में उसके बारे में लिखा, उसको स्टडी करना चालू किया। और कहते हैं कि मतलब कि 19th सेंचुरी और 20th सेंचुरी में हुआ। तो कहने का मतलब ये है कि अजंता 5th सेंचुरी के बाद जो परित्याग किया गया, तब से लेकर के 19th सेंचुरी तक वो परित्यक्त हालत में रहा, और उसकी वजह से ही ये पेंटिंग इतने प्रिजर्व होके हमारे तक रह गए। बाकी सैकड़ों, more than 2000 cave temples are there in this country. More than 2000 cave temples are there. कहीं भी आपको पेंटिंग नहीं मिलता है, क्यों? क्योंकि वहां पे हम जाते रहे, लोग जाते रहे और उसके बाद में सब लोग अपना नाम लिखते रहे, आप ऐसा समझ जाओ एक तरीके से. So human intervention is always a reason for destruction of heritage. And Ajanta was miraculously preserved because it was abandoned.
It was away from the human touch.
Human, yeah, intervention.
Yeah. So Tapsi Rakshit has one more thing to know, but before that, you know that Maitri Kumar has solved my purpose. She says we will wait for another session about Ajanta. Yes, very soon, maybe within 10-15 days. In 10-15 days, we will coming with this. And we are going to this. So this is answered. Yes, you want to say something, Rajesh? You wanted to say something about her?
She's like my elder, and she's a fine painter, and उनसे भी बहुत सीखा है, बहुत कुछ सीखा है मैं मैत्री दी से. And actually एक बाद में अगर आपकी इच्छा हो तो I will be very happy to share my little knowledge, whatever I have studied a little bit, a separate introduction on Ajanta painting, and there can be another separate introduction on Ajanta sculptures, and then on Buddhism of Ajanta, and then the political background of Ajanta. और बाद में हर एक केव, एवरी सिंगल केव, हर एक टेम्पल है, वहां पे 30 मंदिर हैं और 30 मंदिर में अलग अलग है, सब कुछ अलग है. जैसे आप अलग हैं, मैं अलग हूँ, आपका चेहरा अलग है, मेरा चेहरा अलग है, आपका इतिहास अलग है, आपका जानकारी अलग है, नॉलेज अलग है, एजुकेशन ट्रेनिंग सब कुछ अलग है. ऐसे ही अजंता में 30 अलग अलग हैं, उनको एक कभी नहीं समझना चाहिए. एक सबसे बड़ी गुस्ताखी हम लोग आधुनिक इतिहासकारों से और छात्रों से और शिक्षकों से ये हुई है कि हम अजंता एक कम्प्लेक्स मान लेते हैं. जी नहीं, वो 30 मंदिर हैं एक साथ पहाड़ पे बनाए हैं,
वही कह रहे हैं, एक कम्प्लेक्स मान लेते हैं, ये हमारी गलती है. जी
तो आप जितना भी आगे उसके बारे में जानना चाहेंगे, मुझे जो थोड़ा बहुत भी आता है अलग अलग मंदिरों के बारे में, अलग अलग छोटी छोटी बातों में, I will be very happy to share my knowledge with other folks. People who love.
For this reason only, Rajesh, I have established this FolkBrain because we want to start with the simplified thing, the panorama, the holistic view, and then we go to the from macro to the micro, and we will continue this. We have Promila Kaji. She said a wonderful session of virtual tour and real knowledge. Very well done, Dr. Rajesh Singh. अब मैं फिर ये तापसी रक्षित के प्रश्न पे आता हूँ. What sort of illuminating devices were put in the cave for making paintings visible to the observers? The usual oil lamps would have blackened the walls. Question over.
It will be a matter of speculation to say what kind of illuminating devices they used. I have not researched, no one else has researched, and we have no idea. But you just open that door and you open those windows, okay, and you open those side doors. There's plenty of light inside. Plenty. There is no darkness. If there is darkness, it is because the government of India has to take some measures because all the birds and insects go inside, and so they have created jali and wooden doors, and also curtain is there, so it is more dark. It was not dark in the ancient time, and they were particularly very mindful about lighting system. So actually there can be a separate talk on lighting system in Ajanta. और हर एक केव का मैं लाइटिंग सिस्टम के बारे में आपको बताना चाहूंगा. दे वर वेरी मच केयरफुल अबाउट ओरिएंटेशन. सन की लाइट कहाँ से आएगी उसका बहुत ख्याल था उनको. और पहले तो आर्किटेक्चर की अगर आप अंदर जाते हैं तो पता चलेगा कि शुरू में केवल ही विंडो, ओनली विंडो वाज, ओनली डोर, ओनली सिंगल डोर वाज प्रोविजन इन द ओरिजिनल प्लान. All right, and there was no provision of side doors. Side doors they put only because light was not falling on the walls that have the paintings. So after some time when they started doing painting, then somebody said, look, there is so much of darkness. So to solve that problem, they created windows, and then they created those side doors, and in such a way that a flood of light should be coming on the paintings. And remember, if you know, on the mountain cliff, it is all stone over there. The light refracts from the opposite cliff and it comes to inside the caves. So lighting is something that where they were very careful, and it was not so dark as it is today.
Anita Mishra is our very, very regular visitor. She always watches every program that we organize. From the very beginning, she has been praising your uh, narrating ability, the way you narrativize the things, share the knowledge, and she says, great. और भी बहुत सारी बातें वो बोली है. We have Punita Malhotra. She says knowledgeable session and nice. So अब तो इतना जरूर हो गया कि हम इस जो हमने अजंता को छेड़ा है, तो तब तक तो हम दम नहीं लेंगे जब तक सारे केव के बारे में हम जान नहीं जाएंगे राजेश से. और ये हम राजेश को बार बार इमोशनली हैमरिंग करते रहे. You have to come and you have to present your the old finds, the new findings. So Pujari says, "Thank you, Dr. Rajesh ji." So that was it. Thank you all our viewers. This is the purpose of FolkBrain, to bring the best persons available in that specific domain, so that we know the best uh, and very research findings, which are done very honestly. There is a term called heuristic, self-explain. If you write very systematically, as Rajesh says, using the scientific methods and techniques, your findings will be very powerful. It speaks in volumes. And Rajesh, with his ability of speaking, ability of showing his thing, with his determination, the power that he gained, it came from the wisdom that he has gained. And the wisdom that he has gained through his methods, through his, in the morning today's morning we were discussing that how every day 3 to 4 hours he spends his time in the nature, with the nature. There's the nature, culture, unity, psyche, and he get the intellectual stimulation from the nature, and he energizes every day for writing new things, for looking at the things, and what he did yesterday, he memorizes and rememorizes everything, and they get fresh energy to go back to his home and then again writes. This is the routine that Rajesh has made. We are proud of you, Rajesh. Thank you so very much for coming to FolkBrain channel for delivering lecture on culture matters with Kailash Mishra. Uh, धन्यवाद.
Thank you for inviting.
no, ये तो आपके आने से तो वो तुलसी के बारे में कहते हैं ना, कविता पा तुलसी नल से, कविता सी पा तुलसी की कला. कि आर्ट ऑफ पोएट्री को पाके तुलसी शोभायमान नहीं होते हैं, आर्ट ऑफ पोएट्री तुलसी को पाके शोभायमान होती है. सो लाइक दिस, अगर आपके जैसे विद्वान मनीषी जो साधक हैं, जो सच्चे शोधार्थी हैं, वो अगर आते हैं FolkBrain पे, तो FolkBrain का जो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स है वह सार्थक होता है. इसके साथ आप सभी श्रोताओं को धन्यवाद. हम राजेश के साथ पुनः 10 दिन के अंदर आएंगे और हम पॉलिटिक्स की भी बात करेंगे, पेंटिंग की भी बात करेंगे. अभी तो हमने आर्किटेक्चर की बात की है, स्कल्पचर पर भी बात करनी है और भी बहुत चीजों पर बात करनी है. थैंक यू राजेश. थैंक यू एवरीबॉडी.
थैंक यू।
मैं एक चीज और कहना भूल गया कि कल हम एक ऐसे व्यक्ति को बुलाने जा रहे हैं जो 8 पीढ़ियों से हाथी के दांत पर नक्काशी के काम करते आ रहे हैं। हाथी के दांत पर जब बैन लग गया तो उन्होंने चंदन की लकड़ी पर काम करना शुरू किया। चंदन की लकड़ी को लाना भी बहुत सहज काम नहीं है और बहुत महंगा हो गया है, इसलिए वो चंदन की लकड़ी पर तो करते ही हैं, कदम की लकड़ी पर करते हैं। उनकी कलाकृति को देखेंगे तो आपको लगेगा कि भारत सच में कला का एक अद्भुत संसार है। गोंडवाल साहब हैं, तो कल हम नक्काशी के उस कला को बढ़िया से समझेंगे और कल पुनः 6 बजे में कल्चर मैटर्स विद कैलाश मिश्रा में हम उस कलाकार से, नक्काशी के कलाकार से मिलेंगे। तब तक के लिए धन्यवाद। थैंक यू।